Welcome to East Coast DNA. We have some returning guests, so welcome WhyGo.
Hello.
And thematically, today's episode is WhyGo, because you guys are taking off. That's the big news. So before we get into that and why there's a big move, I think the last time you guys were on, you already had your debut out, but the Silk CD was not out yet.
No.
So how's that one been going?
Good. I guess you have my giver. It's been going pretty good. There's a lot more material, so it was quite a different experience knowing what to expect. And also now that you have one collection out already, there's kind of an expectation from people, or maybe not so much of an expectation. So you don't really know what they're waiting to hear.
Sure.
But at the same time, you do, because you just gave them something. So it's a really cool process of, kind of being like, take this,
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay. But yeah, it's been a really cool process.
And I know you guys have been hustling as far as live shows, like you've been getting out there. So, I mean, I'm sure the difference from one album to the other as far as recording process, you had all that live experience going into it too. And we did talk a little bit about some of the recording process in the past year as well. But I am curious, individually, you guys are all still together as a band, which is great. But individually, you have decided to pack things up and leave Nova Scotia. So I'm curious, maybe if we have a few minutes from each here to kind of get into a little bit about how that personally impacts you as a musician. But yeah, just in general, the band's had success here. So what was the kind of catalyst to make you guys decide to hit the road and maybe not come back right away?
I don't know. I feel like you always hear about Canadian bands specifically. I feel like in the States it's kind of a little bit more of you can stick in your city that you're from,
Sure,
because it's big enough. But from Canada, there's a lot of small towns and a lot of bands in those small towns that need to branch out. So yeah, we've had our growth and success in Nova Scotia, but ultimately Ontario seems like the hub. So we chose to go to Kingston. It's kind of right in the center of everything. We can get everywhere as we need to be and play more shows. There's more opportunity for us out there. So I think it's going to impact the band in a greater way that Nova Scotia, could offer for us, but it might be a little bit more easier to obtain in Ontario.
And I know genre-wise, with the style of music that you guys are playing, which is a little bit closer to the traditional rock styles, Kingston is probably a great place. Like, there's a lot of great bands that came out of there that, I mean, we don't even need to list them off. Right. But that definitely gives you an opportunity. And it still has that kind of small town vibe that would be like living in Nova Scotia, but you're handy to Toronto if there's a gig available up there. So exactly. I'm sure just volume-wise of venues, that's going to afford you guys some new opportunities. Yeah. So creatively, is there anything that's making you guys want to make the move from here to there influence-wise, or is it really just about getting venues and more eyes on the band?
That's largely what it is. I think I would say we would do us wherever we are, whether that's here, whether that's there, because I think whatever it is we do create, I think is just intrinsic rather than, of course, like the place and the influences around you. It does play a part, and I think that's going to be, I guess, a good thing in terms of maybe a new spark being in a new place, kind of just that new exciting motivation. But it's like earlier, it's funny you said individually we all decided to go, but we don't really do anything individually.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay.
So we decided, it became pretty obvious that was going to be an important step for the band, and once we realized that, it was like, well, whatever it takes. So we're just gonna go. I mean, it's not going to be an easy thing. It's not like we have a bunch of money saved up. It's not like we have whatever. But I guess nobody's deserved to make it if you're not willing to put yourself through that. And so, we're going to go up and struggle through it for a bit and figure it out because we don't have any other choice. But it's really just to and we kind of laugh. We're like, if we drive 6 hours from here, we end up in Yarmouth.
Yeah.
If we drive 6 hours from there, we can hit Montreal, Toronto, Hamilton, like all those places, right? So, and like you said, Kingston seems like that happy medium of
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of that home feel. A lot of people say it feels like Halifax, those things, but just the access to all these places with people. I mean, we're short on young people in Nova
Mhm.
Scotia and the Maritimes in general, and although we would love for anybody to come out to our shows, but typically it's the younger people wanting to blow money at the bars and these things.
Yeah, yeah.
So you just kind of, I guess you have to go where the eyes and ears are, and it's here, but not as much. So
Sure.
that's what we're gonna go do.
And I'm always happy to know that I have familiar faces in other regions of Canada too, because I plan on bringing some of these videos out to some other regions at some point too. So definitely going to keep in contact with you guys. And now a quick little update on the whole mythos of the band, because you have been featured a couple times. I'm sure a lot of fans of the show are familiar with you. You did have the whole band house thing going where you all live together. So that's kind of been replaced by this secret headquarters that you have. The Glasgow has an old history of like basement areas downtown. Like a lot of cities have like Montreal has the underground mall. Like, so a lot of cities are, like, you're familiar with that stuff, and like areas in Halifax, there's tunnels that get you from like the hotels down to the waterfront. And people are somewhat familiar with those, but in the Glasgow, they're not used very often.
No.
So every time something's being utilized, it's always a little bit of surprise. Like, where am I going? So
It was kind of funny, like when we were looking for, because when we all moved out of the band house, we knew we had to have a rehearsal
yeah,
space.
yeah,
And we there's another room in this building that's like an actual room. This is the electrical room.
yeah.
And so we were kind of looking around, and we were talking prices and whatever, and we were like, do you have any other rooms? And he's like, kind of jokingly, was like, I have this room. We walked in, and he was like laughing, and we were like, perfect, we'll take it.
Yeah,
And he was
yeah.
like, what? We're like, this is exactly what we're looking for, man. And so yeah, it is a bit of that kind of basement, grungy, dingy kind of thing, but it's awesome.
Now, no knock on the venue, but you need pictures of the green room at the Seahorse.
Yeah,
Where he got the furnace right. It's like this, but smaller with
Yeah.
green instead of orange, and a furnace right in the room with you.
It
so.
feels like, yeah, you go to places like that, and it feels like exactly what you're
Yeah.
used to. I mean, there's an old vault right there that we try and crack every day. We've been unsuccessful so
Yeah.
far. But, no, it all kind of seems to add to a bit of the lore of the band, the dungeon, as we call it. So it's, yeah.
Right next to us, not this room, but the other one. We did a promotional video with beside the furnace, inside the furnace, behind the furnace. There's just a room on the other side, and there's one normal doorway, and then there's one that's like carved out of the stone, but there's nothing there.
Yeah.
So we just call it the dungeon, and we walk in there sometimes, and then we walk out.
I think there's some old bootlegging routes and stuff in some of these basements too, because there's some tunnels down by the river. So I don't know if you could find them anymore.
Well,
but-
look at these ceilings, man. We don't know
Yeah.
if these are on fire or what. But
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
we're just waiting for some
It's
kind of
pretty
like
good.
critters to jump down. I don't know.
However, we are going to go back to the band house.
Oh yes.
Straight back to
That's going to be the Ontario concept, is that you're going to have a place together.
Yeah. Well, I guess the two main reasons. One, we realized this is great and it's served us great, but just the actual extra effort of trying to all meet at a place rather than
Sure.
whatever you're doing is right in the place that you're already going
Yeah.
back to after work or whatever, So, and just living together gives you experiences that the genesis of new songs it's just cohesive. It makes sense.
Oh yeah.
And everything was just so much easier, and I just feel like in more ways than that, it kind of made everything feel more together. And also going to Ontario, how are we going to afford a place to live all separately and a rehearsal
Sure,
space and
yeah.
whatever? But we're all excited to go back to the band house.
And so now extended members of the band, you had the band van. So like is that like dead or what happened?
Oh
Mary Jane bit the dust after our tour to Montreal, and it served us well. I mean, we were on the side of the road at 3 a.m. in rural Quebec with a broken brake line, and we still made it to Montreal to play, back to Fredericton, and then Halifax and home. And man, that van served us good for as long as we had it, but unfortunately, it's just not fixable. I mean, cost an arm and a leg to get it fixed for just a break again, probably.
Yeah.
We moved on to a less fun vehicle, but we'll get another van eventually, though. I'm sure we will.
Practical's good. When you're in Kingston, you figure out how far you need to go. Then you can figure out how much maintenance am I willing to put into a vehicle, and you'll know what one to buy.
That's just it. We knew that it was going to be costing us more and more.
Mm-hmm.
We get it fixed here, drive it to Kingston, and then we can't play for another month because we have to save up to get it fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't really practical at the point because we had multiple people looking at it, trying to figure out what the problem even was, and we still didn't know. So it's we're not gonna have somebody to rely on for things like that. And that thing, there's no digital part of it, man. It was all, it's 85.
Yeah.
All getting into the glow plugs and everything. The boys are having a hard time pulling that engine block and everything. Just we had to say goodbye, but she's still in the family, which we like. So we're much happier having it that way than selling it to somebody for a few bucks and just getting it taken out. But hopefully we'll see her when we visit home and everything like that.
And now, between now and when you actually depart to finally rest in Ontario for a bit, I'm curious now that you have strong connections here already. Like, you established yourself releasing a couple albums through Shoebox, and like I know Nick was your buddy helping behind the scenes there all along. So you're not bringing all those people to Ontario with you. So you're going to have a new network to build up there, a little bit of nesting period. But while you're still here and you have a few weeks, maybe a couple months left to kind of do your farewells, do you have anything planned? Like, is there any shows coming up or any new music that you're planning on sneaking out before you disappear?
New music that we're ready to play live for sure. Just not get in, especially like you're saying with everything, getting everything together with the move and even trying to set shows up for us when we get there that are there waiting for us, and we have some there. But no, nothing that'll be released. But we do have a show at the Glasgow Square Theatre on February 15th, right?
Okay.
And so that's the first time we've played that, and we're gonna do it because we leave March 1st. So we're gonna do that as kind of a send off, one last kind of party before we go away for a while.
It's a good Valentine's Day gift for anyone watching. You buy 2 tickets.
There you go. I don't even know if that was on purpose.
You give the 2 tickets on the 14th, catch the show on the 15th, and then you have the rest of the weekend to relax.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Exactly that.
Like
so it just gives us a chance and everyone else a chance if you want to see us before we go, and gives us a chance to see people kind of all together at one time and have a good night, play a great show, and then hopefully have a little party and some goodbyes and surely some sad but happy moments and whatnot. But so that's a big one for us, especially because we haven't played that venue before, and it seems like almost a rite of passage for a band to take that on. Obviously, to try and promote a show of that of that magnitude, it's a bit of a step up, and to do that. To not do that and leave probably would have been a missed opportunity, and we would have been wishing that we did.
Anyone else on that with you?
Yeah, Sweet Serene.
Oh, Sweet Serene.
Yeah, so another great local band.
There you go. Perfect.
And we haven't played with them before, I don't think, right? We've crossed paths lots of times. Right, yes. But to actually have a show with us and them, it hasn't happened yet, so that's nice, too, before we go.
No, that'll be amazing. And a challenge to anyone out there that's watching this, too, we need to sell as many tickets as required to make these guys feel guilty and not move. So that's the whole thing. This is just a big marketing ploy. There's no intentions of anyone moving or anything. It's just, how much money can we get? tug the heartstrings.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, what's the first thing that you want to do once you do get up to Kingston and get yourself settled? Like, if you've made the decision to move up, there must be a couple things that you kind of have as a bucket list for the band up there besides crossing them off down here. I'm sure there's a new list. So, is there any like top 3 or something things you'd like to do up there?
I feel like. Well, I was about to say, I feel like all 3 of us individually might have different goals that we want to reach out
Sure.
to. Like, I'm a big hip fan, and we are all big hip fans, yes.
But don't get it twisted.
I've always been a big hip fan, and it's, we want to become pretty regular in the Toronto scene, so playing the Horseshoe is definitely on our bucket list. Reaching as many cities as many times a week as we can is definitely on the bucket list. Just the sooner we can play as many shows a week as we can get, that's a great goal for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like, me personally, just being able to feel invested in a new place is going to be exciting because, like, just, I know, personally, from a personal standpoint, I spend a lot of time, like, trying to, write and play music even before we were a group and stuff, just around the county. I didn't play out a lot, but just the time that I've been kind of, like, working at it, which obviously that's all good, but the chance to actually go and feel like you're part of something, like a scene, which, not to say there isn't a scene here, but we obviously know it's a different feeling. We're going to be in a city as opposed to, like, a harbor town. There's just more people. There's more things. Like, we've been to Halifax to play a few times, and even just being there for one show, sometimes we're not overwhelmed, but just, like, excited to be there because it just feels like everyone around you's here for the same thing. And you're like,
Just the energy, increasing energy.
yeah.
Other people,
Just going to be like an adventure, but like John said, getting out there and playing as much as we can, like, once we can take this to the point where this is what we're doing day in, day out, you're not trying so hard to fit it into your schedule and do both. Like, we really want to have this be our thing, wake up, write the songs, play them, repeat, like, that's it.
I think another thing too is the access also to the States from there.
Sure.
So I think just because all those things obviously are band goals, but to be playing so much so that we play out that area almost and then force ourselves to leak into the States, I think that's like an intermediate to longer term goal to have the ability to do that, because I mean, again, if we drive to the States from here, you're in Maine, but if you're in New York there or wherever, right? So just the ability to get to these places and, like Brady said, play so much that we can get to the point where this is all that we do. Because, I mean, it is all that we do, but after our job.
Yeah, exactly.
And, yeah, to use that drive to be in a place where you can have the opportunity to play. There's enough venues around that you can play that much. And it's difficult to do here. Things are a lot more spaced out, as we all know, driving anywhere, right, to go do anything. So just so many more stops along the way, and we want to hit them all. So, yeah.
And so now you have the plan. It's going to happen over the next few months. We have the farewell thing planned. When you come back again, eventually, like, you all have family connections and friends and stuff around here too. I'm also going to be curious to see, same as how you're talking about, like, proximity and where you'd get to driving from here versus there. When you come back, you have to go through Quebec at some point. So I do have these conversations a lot on these episodes with bands that are, like, from New Brunswick. I'm like, is it easier for you to get down to the States than it is if you lived in Halifax and that type of thing? So I'll be curious to see if it's easier for you to break into Montreal from the Ontario side than it would have been from the Nova Scotia side. So
I think even just from, like, maybe not in terms of breaking into the scene, but just in terms of, I mean, how long does it take to get? I forget when we did drive it, but it is even just less.
Yeah.
Drive, it feels
absolutely.
like less of a.
It's like 10 hours less of a drive.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're no stranger to the the sleepy drives.
Sure.
After a gig and being like, oh my god. But it's a little nicer and a little easier when you feel like, oh, any weekend that we get a gig there, we can go do it, rather than, oh, we have to plan this out because it's such a big thing, like a road trip, rather than a longer gig. So I think there's a slightly easier chance even in the logistics part of getting there. So but then the whole other thing is bringing people to the shows when you do get there. That's obviously what we have to work on. Yeah.
And now, one thing that I don't know if you'll have an answer for this or not, but where you guys are fairly newish band, like you're new as of the duration of me having this podcast anyway. So with new bands and new solo artists and stuff coming out quite regularly, I know that I've amassed a little bit of a following of those people because they're learning about new people like yourselves. So for those people that are out there looking for ideas and tips and kind of looking at your journey as something that's in their future, do you have any tips for anyone on what works in Nova Scotia, or what you would do different if you could do it again from the beginning versus taking off and going to Ontario?
In terms of doing something different, I don't know. Like, that's kind of a interesting one, because I think we would probably all agree that when we started playing, we had a purpose coming out, and I think a good tip would be, for places like this, you can't be afraid to stick out like a sore thumb. I think it's almost like more important, because around here I feel like a lot of the thing that people want to hear in the venues that we have available, so there's not a whole lot of like genuine music venues. They're mostly, bars, things like that, which is fine.
Yep.
People do want to hear a lot of, the sing-alongs, things they already know, which goes for everywhere. However, I don't think you should be afraid to kind of blow the roof off, that kind of thing, Go in there, swing it.
Like, I think there's a market for everybody everywhere. Like, if you want to be in this small town, yes, I feel like the majority, specifically of the maritime towns, is they want to hear, like, the sing-alongs, the Celtic music, all that stuff. But if you want to go in there and you want to play heavy metal music, headbanging, thrashing, there will be people out there in this town that will go out to that. There is a market for everybody everywhere, and we found that market in this town. The rockers, the ones that want to go out for a rock show, we found that pretty quickly, and we targeted them immediately. And we weren't, like, pretty much what Brady's trying to say, like, we weren't afraid to go out and do that. We didn't feel the pressure like we had to play covers and Celtic music and a fiddle in the band to try to get people out there. But yeah, it's a really good point, though.
I feel like it was a good point about the thing that there aren't a whole lot of dedicated music venues around here. I mean, like, you're sound checking the drums and somebody's trying to enjoy their lunch. And that doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Nobody's enjoying that. They're not enjoying that. We're not enjoying that. But what Brady said about having a purpose, there are things that can be a little less comfortable, further drives, things like that, of maybe feeling like you're inconveniencing people. Like, our first show we played in the Harbor House, which has a very, like, in terms of a singular room, it's very small. I'm pretty sure they've probably never had anybody other than acoustic artists in there before.
Yeah.
I don't even know how we ended up playing there. I think he worked there at the time. That's probably why. And the boss was away for the weekend. And we went in and blew that place up. And half the people hated it.
Yeah.
Because it was so loud and it was, like, aggressive and very brash and everything that we do. But we have the purpose of, this is what we do, this is what we want to do, and you kind of have to carve that out for yourself. You have to carve that audience out for yourself. So whether or not it's as comfortable as it may be in a place that there's a dedicated scene for whatever you do, you kind of just have to be like, I don't care. This is what we do, and
it does seem like we're starting to settle. Like, and it was like this years ago, and things always shift. But coming out of all the lockdowns and everything, when this podcast started, it was because things were just re-emerging. So then it was like, oh, somebody's going to open their venue and allow people to perform. So it was like, yeah, bring anyone in at any time. And anyone coming in to fill seats was great. And I was spoiled. I got to go right up front to every single show I went to, as long as I was masked and kept my hands clean. And then when things started to get more and more comfortable for people, I was still up front for a while. But now I find, like I was at Shoebox last night, great to see, packed house. But I sat in the back of the room all night, which is unusual for me.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing that with the industry. We're starting to get people out, but people are wanting to go out, which is good. That's what we need to do. So we are starting to get to the point where people are going to venues like Harbour House as an example. That's a place that certain people are going because that's where they go.
Right.
They expect to hear some type of music, and so that's great. But maybe
Not
they
our
didn't expect
type of
that.
music.
So
They didn't.
So
They
yeah,
did people walking around like this.
we're starting to get to the point where genres starting to matter a little bit as far as how you book. And I think that, no knocking anyone doing bookings, but I think that that's something that we haven't paid attention to for the last few years, because it was more, who can we afford?
Just
Who will
anything
sell
and
a few
everything.
tickets?
Let's
Yeah.
just get people out. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And there was that urge to just go do things. And
So now it's definitely, the venues are starting to have their own identity, and they're starting to have their own client base. And so now it's back onto the bands to find which are the venues that fit them.
yeah.
So it's great that you guys are going to Ontario, despite the fact that I hate to see us lose another Nova Scotia band.
Yeah, sure.
It'll be good for you guys to explore the venues and see what's out there. But definitely stay in touch, because I want to hear some stories about some of these places.
For sure.
So
For sure. We'll do
save
some
up save
Zoom
a couple
interviews.
bad ones. Save a couple bad ones.
Oh,
We don't
for
need
sure.
to name names or anything, but just save those. And when you have a couple good ones, we'll just slide the bad ones in there. with some
Most
good
are probably
stories.
self-inflicted, to be honest.
Yeah,
Most
yeah,
of the-
I imagine.
Most of the bad stories.
Actually, any stories that I know about bands that had issues with venues, it's like 99% of the band did something. So
I mean, we're good, respectful guys.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I was just gonna make a joke. I was just gonna say a tip for artists is to just lie. Be like, no, we're soft. And then you get in there and just play what you play, because
Yeah.
that's what you do. Like, you have to do whatever you have to do.
tip to get the initial gig.
Yeah,
Anyway,
you gotta do. Like, we've never been asked to go back to the Harbour House.
Yeah.
And we knew that.
Yeah,
But, just whatever you gotta do to get on stage somewhere or play for people. I mean,
Absolutely.
whether or not they hate it, there were people there that loved it. There
Yeah.
were people there that were like, "What just happened? That sucked." That was, of course, but get
And
there.
From a fan point of view, too, you guys haven't done a lot of self-produced stuff on the music video end. Like, you've had content out. You used to be big on TikTok. I know, like, early on, I'd see a lot of TikTok stuff, too. So do you guys have plans where you're going to be focusing a little bit more on trying to get to the point of full-time musicians? Will you be filling some of that time with some video content? Will you be doing some different art projects to go with the music?
Absolutely. We this whole thing is, it's a learning process through and through. So things come when they come, and we did some video stuff. We kind of leaned more into the writing and playing at certain points. It all just kind of fluctuates through, what you need to do at that time, and then you have to try and figure out how to fit all of it in all of the time, which is a really difficult thing sometimes, especially with, like Tanner said, our situation right now of everybody kind of being dispersed.
Mm-hmm.
When we were living together, you could just whip the phone out and take a stupid video of your buddy, but
Yeah,
now
yeah.
you're like, all right, boys, let's take the camera stands, we got this is what we're doing, we got props, and then you gotta congregate down here, whatever you're doing,
Mhm.
and then make the videos. But I think as things come together, and we're not going to be so sporadic and trying to come together again, when we take off on this excursion, we're going to have all the opportunities right there in front of us,
Yeah.
because we'll be able to be vlogging on the way up. Oh, new house, exploring town, all the fun stuff. So it's really gonna, I think, fall into our palms in the first place when we take off. But then it is always just kind of a balance of figuring out how to prioritize everything that needs to happen, especially with 3 people.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of weeds out their strengths and weaknesses as well. Like when we started, I did a lot of social media stuff. I was just hammering it, getting people's faces, which another tip, getting people's faces, don't worry about it. You gotta, whatever. You're gonna be annoying, but you gotta be, because then people remember, and that's really the important thing. But no, John lately has really taken over a lot of our responsibilities in terms of like teching and sound and production, and that's really helpful. It's really helpful. Thanks, John. We love you, John.
Yeah, boys, I got you. It's just it's also it helps though when you're interested in it. Like, I was never into the sound stuff ever. I left that to the professionals, it seemed like. And then the more and more that you get into doing stuff like that, it's a really interesting thing to dive into, deep dive. And it's so beneficial to us though, so that I keep that in my mind, and every day I just keep deep diving into more Reddit threads and YouTube videos and watching tutorials on how to trim things on Reaper, all those, like that's where it all started. And then you just deep dive into it and you get a little bit better and better, and it's good. We have we used to take out our iPhone when we were in the band house before we had like a good mixer over there and everything.
Oh my God, those early.
Yeah, like those early demos, the on the line demo that we took to Shoebox, I don't even know how they even comprehended what the song was.
Literally,
it's just symbols.
It was a cell phone propped up on a deer on deer antlers.
Yeah.
I swear to God, on the wall, and it was just barely like teetering there, and we were just playing like through. Like, we didn't have in-ears. I don't even know if we had earplugs at that point. Like, just so stupid and new and whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, like and we brought that to be like, this is what we want to do, and they're like, yeah, right. Like, you guys have a demo? We're like, what's that, basically?
Yeah.
And then now John's out of the necessity because of the move. Like you said, we don't have as much. We're not going to have help per se, you know, and so we kind of were like, well, I guess we better figure out how to do this, and John took to it very well, and he's been doing a great job with it. So through that's done great things for our knowledge when it does come time to start making videos, and we've been a lot more conscious of that. But even in terms of demos, like we now, if we're trying to bring a demo or we're trying to make a demo to send to the other guys or to listen to work off of, it's actually listenable.
Yeah.
And so it's been a huge thing for us, and John's been killing it with that.
I'm sure if you go back and look too, besides just that one specific example, I know even when I was just setting up today, we were talking about like that I've had some gear upgrades over the last little while. Like you don't realize, to me, that's second nature to have all that stuff with me now.
Right.
And a year ago, none of that. I didn't even know what some of those things were a year ago.
Right.
Like a year ago, I think it was Christmas last year, all three of us got in-ear monitors, and we got that mixer we saved up from playing gigs, the band money. We bought a really nice mixer. We waited for a Black Friday sale, and we got it. And ever since then, our production, our practices, everything has just skyrocketed up.
Yeah.
And it does make a difference. So, like, I guess another tip from WhyGo is invest in the band. Invest in your gear.
Yes.
Because it does matter.
Yeah.
It does. Keep the money in the band.
That's it. It's
the drink tickets, the $50 that you won from that.
That's
Saturday
been
night
2024 tips from people in general. Is the first thing, which is similar, is to just do it. Like if you want to do something, don't worry so much about what other people think. You want to do it, go do it.
And on top of that,
Especially with the move, people are like,
yeah,
are stupid.
right? On top of that, though, don't let the lack of gear stop you from trying to do it, though.
right.
Because, like I said, our first demo that we brought to Shoebox was a shitty video in deer antlers, and it was all cymbals. And
Yeah.
that's it. You can't even hear the vocals. I don't even know. They didn't even know what Brady was singing.
He said that. He was like, I mean, I'm sure the melody's fine, but I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, cymbals sound nice though. Like, you know what I mean? Just like peeking the mics and stuff.
Your way up to get nice.
Yeah, you can reinvest as you learn
Well,
what works and what doesn't.
When we played that Harbor House gig, we literally had a small amp. You had a bass amp that you could like barely, you could barely hear that. And I'm in there beating the shit out of the drums, and it was just like, looking back, we laugh, but at how much gear we've invested in and kind of forced ourselves to get over the couple of years. But just do it. Like John said, when you don't have gear, whatever, you got enough to project sound, just do it.
And if you're good enough, you're going to get something at some point to get the gear that you want at in the first place. So
we were actually talking last night at practice. We when we did the Harbor House, we followed that up with another show in Pictou, because that was where we were kind of like basing out of at the time. We played a lot of covers for our first few shows because you got to build up a rep. But I remember we were laughing because we were tuning wide open in front of everybody by ear and like treble pickup on, ding, throughout the whole venue. Everyone's like, "What are these guys doing?" We brought the demo over to Shoebox, and they were asking us about the tune. We get in there to start recording the song, and he looks at our setup. I've got like an overdrive, a wah, all this stuff. Looking around, he goes, "You got your tuner pedal?" I go, "That'll be my next one."
Why wouldn't you have that? So we didn't realize, like, we were just so new to it. Like, Brady's been playing guitar for a lot longer than I have been playing bass too. So we were just getting so used to playing live and just fresh off our feet, and we had no idea that you needed a tuning pedal because you can't hear your tuning with people talking in front of you the whole time. And, like, you're standing in front of everyone, you're going blam blam boom.
John plugged in to my pedal one show.
Yeah, I did, just to tune my bass.
Nice.
But we all got pedal boards now. We're good. But that's
You've got two.
you know, yeah, I've got two now. But definitely, like we were saying though, don't be scared just because of the lack of the gear. If you have a guitar and an amp, if you're going on solo, you got a guitar and an amp and a microphone, you're gonna do great. If you got a band, you got a drum kit, bass amp, guitar amp, you're gonna make it work somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, though, if you invest in your band, you're gonna realize your production and your sound and your feel with everything is gonna go up. So I'm glad that we saved up. We kept the money in the band, and we got the gear that we needed.
Mhm.
Now it's way more comfortable to play.
Well, and it affords you the opportunities to get to a position where you can make a decision like this, where you're going to make the move.
I think an important thing to note as well is you have to, invest, be willing to invest. Like we said, you don't need the drink tickets and all that. But, however, there is something to be said about sometimes kind of taking a step back and drawing from that raw potential that you kind of had to have starting out. Because, you can get a lot of gear and things, but then you can start leaning on different, selections of what you have and kind of
Mhm.
trying to find what you want, but then you kind of realize that you're too worried about, oh, what do I need to sound this way, or what do I need to get what I want, but
Sure.
really all you need to do is plug in, man. Like, that's
Yeah.
at the very core of it. However, yes, invest in your group, because if you have the drive and you are committed to doing that, that's what it takes. It's you got to be in it. You
Yeah.
got to be there for it.
Yeah, I guess you kind of have to be like being hard-nosed about it too. Like, there's a lot of things that are easy to not do. It's easy to say, oh, that might be a lot of money, or oh, that might be a scary thing to pick up and move. Like, people keep telling us about Kingston. We don't know anything about Kingston.
Yeah.
Like, and they're like, well, then why are you going? And we're like, because we're a band. Yeah, literally.
Look at the map. It's this way to Toronto and this way to Ottawa.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're like, wait, so you don't know anything really about where you're going? You don't know if you're gonna like it, if you're gonna whatever. We're like, none of that matters. Like, we're trying to tell you that what matters is that it's good for the band, and then everything else, whatever. Like, it funnels into place. So if you really want to do it, you gotta just do it. Like you said.
And if something works, it works, and if it doesn't, then you'll change that thing.
Right.
Like, if it's not Kingston, then maybe it'll be another suburb of Toronto or something
Yeah.
like that. Like,
Yeah.
who
Exactly.
knows?
Yeah.
So where should we be sending people to follow you guys, since you're not going to be in our backyard the whole time?
Oh, you can follow us on every social media: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at official WhyGo. Tickets for the February 15th show at the theater,
Yes.
the Glasgow Square, they're in our link tree in our Instagram bio. But ultimately the website is Ticket Pro. So
Yep.
if you just type in Ticket Pro and search up WhyGo, you will find the show there. They're $20 tickets until January 15th, I believe, and then they go up to $25. So the early
Okay.
bird sale's $20, so get them while they're cheap.
Just think, if you're buying that as a Valentine's Day gift, you're saving $10. That's because you're doubling
my
down on the
God.
savings. So, yeah, definitely people go out there and buy those in pairs. If you don't have a Valentine, you can bring a buddy. I don't know. I don't have a ticket yet, so write me at East Coast DNA. You can find me on Instagram as well. And I guess for anyone that's not already familiar with the band, we should do the traditional play off with a song. So maybe something from the second CD. Do you guys want to pick a song from that?
Sure, let's go with Silk. Silk's the first song on the album. It's also the title of the album, Silk. And yeah.
Great. And
yeah, you can find it everywhere. Also at the show, we'll have CDs for sale as well of that album.
Awesome.
And we'll probably have some shirts and stuff, whatever's left. We'll try to clear as much merch as we can, get out there, and then restock. So
bring cash and Sharpies. Maybe they'll sign some stuff too while you're there. Perfect. Well, thank you guys for inviting me into your secret lair.
Absolutely. Don't tell anybody where it is.
Yeah, no, mum's the word. And best of luck. And we will have to do some kind of like update as you get settled and see how things are going on there. Yeah, excellent.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks again.
Thanks a lot, man.
In her hair, she breathes a toxin in the air, and it's mine. But she sips it so smooth like red wine. She sleeps with flowers in her eyes, and all she dreams of summer skies, but she's blind. Petals will what will she find? A fabric will, and she tears like silk. In her hand, but the diamond is rougher than she planned, so she cries. 'Cause a diamond in the rough's not a diamond gonna shine. Illustrated thrills have her wrapped in silk.